Hey guys, and welcome back to Battlefront updates and some Star Wars Battlefront 2 news. Tomorrow is the next patch for Battlefront 2 titled Another Night on Endor, which introduces some new stuff to Ewok Hunt as well as some changes to the game overall, and we got two community transmissions to go over. First of all, the one detailing the actual Ewok Hunt changes coming tomorrow, and then the second one going over the release notes for tomorrow. So I thought we'd start off with the Another Night on Endor community transmission and then move on to the release notes. So the first big thing they're doing to change Ewok Hunt is that they're actually adding the normal Endor map to Ewok Hunt, the one where you can play in Galactic Assault. I'm not sure if it's the entire area, but I would imagine it's probably the first and second phase, which is pretty big to be honest, but not the third phase that's indoors. And it will actually be added to the rotation, meaning that you'll be playing both the old Ewok Hunt map and the new one, or the old one depending on how you see it. So there will be two Ewok Hunt maps in the rotation as far as I understand. Otherwise the premise is the same, that you have your flashlights as a stormtrooper, you need to survive, and if you die as a stormtrooper you become an Ewok and you need to survive until the shuttle arrives. But there are some changes that they've done to the game mode, such as adding transmitters. So basically you need to keep your eyes out for supply crates when you are a stormtrooper, and if you do stumble across one, they could contain a transmitter, and the transmitter will send a signal to the Imperial fleet in orbit, expediting the time of arrival to the shuttle, and the transmitter will spawn in a random place each time. So there's a lot of risk with venturing out into the forest alone to look for it, but should you find it, the payoff will be significant. So I'm glad that they're adding an incentive to the stormtroopers to actually move around in the forest, because previously most people just tended to camp in the cave as the stormtroopers, but now you've got a reason to head out, since you'll actually have a bigger chance of winning if you successfully get that transmitter. And you can also get the same upgrades as previously, where you get a DLT-19 incendiary grenade and unlimited flashlight if you find one of these crates. So it seems like the crates might be similar, but you'll either find a transmitter or the upgrade in them. The traps in the forest work the same as previously, but they made some changes to the Hunter Instincts ability of the Ewoks by first of all outlining other Ewoks, making it easier to find a partner or two to hunt with, but they will also be able to distinguish between a wounded trooper and a regular one. If you're a wounded trooper, you will show up as a red outline, while stormtroopers at full health will be yellow. And this will also affect the footprints that get left behind, allowing Ewoks to stalk their wounded prey with greater ease. I like this, as it means you can actually focus on trying to get the wounded stormtroopers, as you do tend to need a lot of hits to kill them. So if you have 5 of them and one of them are really wounded, you can focus on that one to a lot easier secure a kill. But moving on, we've got the release notes for the update coming out tomorrow, which is actually quite long with a lot of bug fixes and tweaks to the UI and similarly. So I'm going to go over the important parts as always, and you can find the full release notes in the description below. First of all, Heroes vs Villains is coming to Felucia, and you will be able to play the area that surrounds the village and Sarlacc pit, including the laser fence. So that will be popping up in the rotation for Heroes vs Villains as of tomorrow. And then we got the 2 new hero appearances that we already knew about, the Yavin ceremony skins for Luke and Han. The Han skin will be available for credits and crystals, and the Luke skin will be available for, through an event, but after the event is concluded you can buy that for crystals and credits as well. The co-op mode has also been expanded by adding a bunch of defense scenarios, and now when you select co-op in the main menu, you will be able to choose which side you want to play on, as the server will then place you in the most suitable game possible. And then for some quality of life updates. First of all, they've done a lot of UI stuff that I will get to when down at the actual release notes, but they've also tweaked the officer's flash grenade to make it slightly less obstructive. And on Capital Supremacy, they're adding a destructible objective on the final stage of the Dreadnought, similar to the one which can be found on the Venator as of the October 9th patch. They're also changing the default appearance of the Republic Jet Trooper to match the 501st, and the old appearance for the Jet Trooper will now be available as a skin you can pick yourself, but it's going to be unlocked for everyone, so you can choose if you want the new default 501st Jet Trooper or if you want the old red one. I'm assuming this is the first step to kind of test out reinforcement skins, which we'll hopefully be getting more of soon. As for the actual notes for quality of life, they redesigned the abilities overlay screen, which now shows your equipped star cards for relevant hero characters, added an icon and information about the passive ability that lets them regain health when they defeat an enemy. They've also tweaked the logic and timing of stagger animations to allow players to move easier after attacks. All characters are now immune to staggers for 0.7 seconds after having been staggered. This is applicable to staggering abilities, melee, and lightsaber attacks. Players will be able to move and use abilities out of a stagger 0.15 seconds earlier for all characters, and they reduce the time length of staggers when hit from behind by 0.15 seconds. So overall, it sounds like lightsaber combat will be, or staggers overall with abilities will be a little bit less annoying after this update. As for health on kill / health on damage messaging, all of the heroes except boss gain an amount of health when they defeat an enemy. This is now shown with a health icon and health bar animation as it takes effect. And I've also added the same type of messaging for the clone commando when he gains health through the battle focus, and to all the non-heroes that get health on kill through star cards such as assault training, brawler, stalker, aerial training, enforcer training, and so on. As for nameplate and health bar readability tweaks, above the head they've added a dark background to improve readability, and the stamina bar they've tweaked color for improved readability, and the player health bar they've introduced visuals to more clearly define the amount of incoming damage you just took. So there's a lot of like UI and quality of life changes here, so I'm curious how different the game is going to look from a UI standpoint tomorrow. Now over to hero changes. Hero abilities will not get cancelled when heroes are hit with melee attacks. A melee attack right after a lightsaber attack should not stagger the player. And they've done a pass on all hero abilities, letting players use them during or after being staggered depending on the ability. And then there is a big list here of the actual changes they've done to the specific abilities of the heroes, like having some abilities 0.3 seconds earlier and some abilities 0.1 second earlier. So you can read every little detail yourself if you want to, but overall they've simply made a pass on all the hero abilities, making stuns not as annoying and staggers not as annoying, so hopefully everything is going to feel a bit more responsive after this patch. But that's not the end of the hero changes, so abilities are not staggering front-facing heroes who are blocking. If a player blocks an ability coming from the front, the hero will only perform a blocking animation but will not get staggered by it. If a player blocks an ability coming from behind them, the hero will be fully affected by the ability, something that Xio mentioned earlier, so basically it means that it's now worth flanking around the hero to force push them or do any ability for that matter. Blaster shots now drain stamina of blocking heroes based on weapon damage instead of a fixed value. I didn't actually know that was an issue, but that's a good change considering some blasters shoot really fast, some shoot really slow, so that felt a bit unfair. There's also been a lot of individual tweaks to the heroes. I'm gonna just mention some of them here briefly because this list is, well, one of the longest patch notes I've seen in a while, and some of the details you probably don't need to know. But for Kylo Ren, for instance, they've reduced the damage reduction for his resilience cards and added some UI elements. They've done some fixes to Luke Skywalker, and for Grievous they've done quite a lot of fixes for his thrust surge and unrelenting advance, so that the thrust surge, for instance, you should not be spinning anymore. I remember Guillaume said that out on Twitter as well, so hopefully no more spins when the thrust surge fails. And for Palpatine, you will be able to see the amount of targets available for the chain lighting, and you will no longer be staggering people with your double-handed force lighting. And for Bosk, they've sped up some of its animations for both the Predator Instincts, Proximity Mines, and the Oxys Grenade, meaning that once you use that ability, you will be able to act faster, simply put. I think that's a good change considering everyone else has gotten passive health on kill cards except Bosk, so he deserves a little bit of a polish there. That's good. And then various bug fixes for rest of the heroes as well. As for co-op, they've now made co-op accessible from the front end menu through a special tile next to single player and multiplayer, and then players can choose the faction they want to play as I mentioned earlier. And they redesigned the co-op in-game scoreboard to focus only on the playing team. And then done a bunch of bug fixes and balancing and tweaks to spawns, command posts, and similarly as well. As for instant action, all star cards, weapons, and mods are now unlocked and fully upgraded on instant action, which I think is really good, like in arcade. And then various fixes for instant action, and something interesting is that on PC specifically, they've added the option to set the number of AI players per team you want yourself. I'm assuming the reason to why they do this on PC is because you might be able to set a really high number of AI players, and the consoles might not be able to handle that versus a PC can. So tomorrow I'm gonna try to basically max out the AI players in instant action and see what happens. And then some game mode fixes to Ewok Hunt, Capital Supremacy, Hero Showdown, and Heroes vs Villains, and some bug fixes for the Clone Commando and Droideka. So again, if you want to read every little note yourself and see if your favorite or not favorite bug has been fixed, make sure to head over to that link in the description below. But otherwise, I will see you guys tomorrow when the patch is out with some Ewok Hunt gameplay and see what else might be worth checking out. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, may the Force be with you.